Hey friend, welcome back to the Vision Driven Health Podcast, your go-to show for creating healthy habits that last in partnership with God. If you're listening today, it might be because you are curious if you're experiencing the symptoms of a slow metabolism. Perhaps you've started to notice that it's more difficult to lose weight. This is a commonly believed indicator of a slower metabolism, but I will be highlighting a few that aren't always identified. With each indicator, I'll explain how a slower metabolism is related to it and how you can make changes to improve your metabolism and ultimately have the vitality to do what God has called you to do. Do you find yourself struggling to consistently implement healthy habits? Do you lack energy, confidence, and motivation because of stress, overwhelm, and shame for having not gotten it together by now? Friend, there is hope and grace for your health. Hey, I'm Robin Ryan McDonald, host of the Vision Driven Health Podcast. I'm a follower of Jesus, a wife, a mama of two, and a seminarian turned health coach. And I'm so excited that you're here. I found myself in my early 20s captive to cravings and convenience. 20 pounds heavier, super tired, with a face full of acne. I could not figure out how to maintain healthy habits until I discovered the power of aligning my choices with God's vision. 10 years and 2 kids later, by the grace of God, I'm still prioritizing my health and feeling amazing. If you are over quick fixes and are ready to feel good in your own skin, then grab a giant water bottle and let's dive on in. As a reminder, the Vision Driven Health Podcast is under the umbrella of Naval Health Incorporated. The content on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended for medical advice. It does not take the place of medical advice or treatment from a physician. Listeners should consult their own doctor or a qualified healthcare professional for specific health concerns and questions. What I love most about doing what I do is when I get to see my clients experience the health that they're made for. It fires me up when I see how they come in with one mentality and they finish up the program feeling like a completely different person in the way that they think about their health, how their body feels, and what they realize is possible for them when they partner with God in their health journey. If you didn't get a chance to catch last week's episode, number 71, with my clients Tatiana and Heather, I highly recommend giving it a listen. You can hear how a mama of 4 who was in ministry and hated meal prep and felt like she could never actually create health for herself has been down 8 pounds and has a totally different perspective about her health and what's possible for her. If you listen, you'll also hear how my other client struggled with mental health issues and got put on a medication that caused her to gain weight, and how she now is 15 pounds lighter and is feeling so much better and so much more hopeful on also what she has possible for her in her health. I tell you this because starting next Monday, I am launching the next cohort for the Healthy Weight Loss Academy. That's May 13th. If you've tried different things in the past and they haven't worked for you, or maybe you've tried things and they did work, but they didn't end up lasting for you, I invite you to try a healthy approach to weight loss. And when I say healthy, I mean physically, but also emotionally and spiritually as well. The goal of this course is for you to get launched into a lifestyle that you love and that leaves you feeling great. You can sign up today at visiondrivenhealth.com/course. I hope to see you there. I'm going to kick this off by giving a bit of a background on metabolism and metabolic health. Metabolism is defined simply as the process by which your body converts food into energy. Metabolic health, which is directly related to metabolism, answers the question, how well is your metabolism functioning in light of the health of your various organ systems? I think metabolism most often comes to mind around how it affects weight loss, but it's even more important and essential than that. Your metabolism is responsible for converting energy for your body to do what it needs to survive. Breathing, circulating blood, growing and repairing cells, regulating your body temperature. All of those functions require energy, and metabolism provides that, or at least converts it for that. It's important to note that metabolism can change. You aren't doomed or blessed with a slow or fast metabolism. It is largely influenced by your lifestyle. Now, there are other factors like your family history, race, ethnicity, your age, however, your muscle mass, that's a big one. However, majority of what we experience in our health is a result of the choices we make day in and day out. Now, metabolic syndrome is widespread. It affects 34% of all U.S. adults and half of those U.S. adults who are over the age of 60. Instead of a specific disease, metabolic syndrome is actually a culmination of different symptoms. And so you are diagnosed with metabolic syndrome if at least if at least 3 of the following 5 markers are present. So those 5 markers are: you have a large waist circumference, and that might be, sometimes that's taken by seeing if your waist circumference exceeds your hip circumference. You have high blood pressure. You have an elevated fasting glucose, that's your blood sugar, elevated triglycerides, and or a low HDL, which is the good cholesterol. So again, if you have 3 of those 5 things that I just explained, then you might have metabolic syndrome. And this is a result of poor metabolic health, which, as I described earlier, is how well your metabolism is functioning in light of all of your organ systems. And it is the state of health, or the lack of health, that precedes diabetes and heart disease, which are 2 of the most prominent diseases in the Western world, again, particularly the US. Jesus, help us. It is a state of chronic inflammation, which again is usually due to primarily lifestyle choices. So we're going to dig into some lesser known indicators of a slow metabolism and what you can do to shift it into a healthy range. So number one indicator potentially of a slow metabolism is feeling cold all the time. A slower metabolism will cause your body to produce less heat, so then you feel colder. Now, this isn't always why someone feels cold all the time, but it can be. This one actually I have the least bit to say about because it just in general is a result of a slower metabolism, or another factor that, given the rest of the information I'll share right now, can be improved. So number 2 indicator is that you have high blood sugar and cravings for sugar. Now, this one is super important. If you don't pay attention to any other indicators besides this one, you will have more than enough of a focus to make major improvements in your health. Now, when you go to your doctor for a physical, or if you aren't feeling 100%, maybe you experience more fatigue, etc., make sure to get your fasting blood sugar tested. If you have a high fasting blood sugar, even if your A1C isn't in a pre-diabetic or diabetic range, you could still be experiencing metabolic syndrome, which leads to that inflammation and weight gain. And that's part of the problem when we get blood work and testing done at the doctors. They've got this range that they're looking at, and it's a wide range that often they'll tell you like, oh no, everything looks normal, or they say it's in normal range, but there's part of the quote unquote normal range that isn't optimal. And so you'll still feel really crummy, even though technically it's normal. And so being mindful of that is helpful, and perhaps that could be an episode that I do in the future. But with that said, high blood sugar leads to insulin resistance, which, as we know, that's prediabetes, diabetes. Insulin resistance can precede those things, but it is certainly an element of being pre-diabetic and diabetic. And your body produces insulin to reduce the sugar in your blood. But your body can get to the point where it no longer does this well, right? Insulin resistance. And insulin resistance can negatively impact your metabolism because the glucose, the sugar, right, in your blood, stays in your bloodstream instead of entering your cells to be used for energy, right? Because metabolism is the process by which your body takes food and turns it into energy. But if your food's converted to that glucose and it's in your bloodstream instead of in your cells, then you're not benefiting from that energy. And blood sugar is a key indicator of how well your metabolism is functioning. So your average and fasting glucose should be within a healthy range with minimal glucose spikes after eating. And if this is the case, and the best way to monitor this is usually with a continuous glucose monitor, you are then able to get, it's pretty nifty. You stick it in your arm, then it gets attached to your phone on an app, and it shows you what your blood sugar is when you eat this food after this meal, and how quickly it jumps, how quickly it reduces back to a normal range. Super valuable data, especially if you're a data person. And also, if you're curious, the health of your blood sugar, your levels and whatnot. And even too, it can be helpful because when you go and you get your fasting blood sugar tested, that's just one data point. So if you get the continuous glucose monitor, then you're able to see and learn a lot about your body and how it responds to different foods. Now, if you don't go that route, that's totally fine. If you just want to do the stuff that will actually improve your blood sugar, if you suspect that it's an issue, a very simple way to do this. Well, actually, I will say too, I encourage you to go way back to episode 9 and hear my friend Lindsay break all this down. She does a great job on this. I can't believe that was episode 9, and here we are on episode 73 now. So I am due to do another episode on this subject, but a very simple way to eat for managing blood sugar is to consume a low glycemic diet, which means you eat foods that don't overly spike your blood sugar. Easier said than done. But this is what I teach my clients in the Healthy Weight Loss Academy. They learn how much to eat, but also what to eat in order to balance their blood sugar and provide optimal nourishment. The biggest thing you can do is try your absolute best. I know so many of us are super busy, but try your best to cook at home. And when you do cook at home, use whole food ingredients. That's meat, veggies, fruits, nuts, seeds. If you can, try to keep grains to a minimum. Grains do create one of the more significant spikes in your blood sugar, particularly if those grains are processed. Anything that's ground, like flours and whatnot, bread, tortillas, crackers, pita chips, muffins, cookies, etc., pretzels, all of those things will create a much more significant blood sugar spike. Now, I do eat grains and those processed foods options, like I mentioned, but I primarily make them myself. So if I have bread, it's my own homemade sourdough bread, which I've mentioned before, the amazingness of sourdough. It has a higher protein content. The fermentation process breaks down the gluten. It actually has a lower glycemic spike and effect on your blood sugar. But with that said, I am also not battling a metabolic disorder. I have metabolism that can process those foods well for when I do have them. However, I primarily consume that whole food diet, cooking things at home. And usually the carbs in my meals are from vegetables or fruits. And I include potatoes in that. So don't think I'm not having like any carbs or whatnot. But when you make your plate, you do want to prioritize fiber, which largely comes from vegetables. You also want to make sure you have a good portion of protein. I talk all the time about the importance of protein, and you want to have those healthy fats. And you actually want to consume them in the order of fiber, protein, fats, or you could do fiber, fat, then protein, but sometimes it's difficult to have like a designated fat thing on our plate. But then you consume your carbs last because that actually sends in these slow digestible foods first. And by the time your higher processed foods, which would be the carbs, come through, there's this, I guess you could say, blockade, so to speak, that is preventing it from spiking the way that it would if it were the first thing that you consumed, which is kind of sad because if you go to a restaurant that puts out chips or bread on the table while you wait for your meal, if you want to balance your blood sugar, and it's tough to do, but hey, it's great discipline. I will wait until I have my meal and I can eat it in that order, and then I'll have, half of the bread roll or whatnot. And that's, again, what I teach in my course is how do you enjoy eating out and foods like that in alignment with a broader, goal and perspective of eating primarily healthy, nourishing foods and that are serving your goal of being healthy and doing what God's called you to do. So doing this one thing, cooking at home with whole food ingredients, can literally change the whole trajectory of your health. That's number 2. Number 3 indicator that you might have a slow metabolism is that you are consistently bloated and or constipated. Now this and the next indicator are related, but if you have a slow metabolism, your body isn't converting food to energy at a healthy pace, then what happens is your entire digestive process ends up being slowed down as well. So then this leads to feeling bloated because your food isn't being broken down properly, which how, your midsection feels is probably what's going on inside of you. The bubbles, the gurgles, the gas. Your body's doing its best to try and handle what you've eaten and or just be able to process it according to how, the state of your metabolism at that point. And the other part of that is that your body, like I said, it's not converting that food to energy. It's still, maybe in your blood sugar. And instead it's also storing it as fat for energy later. So that energy isn't being made available in the present. And that leads to the number 4 indicator, and that is that you feel consistently tired. So as you can imagine, if your body is literally not producing energy at the rate that it should, you're going to feel tired. And this comes back again to consuming a low glycemic diet because fatigue can come from many things. A slow metabolism is one of them. But even within what we're talking about here, if you're not having actual energy produced, that will zap you of energy. But it could also be the result of a blood sugar spike, because on the other side of a blood sugar spike is a crash. And what happens is the insulin that was produced to bring down your blood sugar will usually bring it down below the range it's supposed to be in. And when your blood sugar dips, then you feel lethargic, maybe even kind of moody and irritable, and you're hungry again because your body is actually doing what it's designed to do if you're in that mode where your blood sugar is super, super low, because that can be problematic as well. And so your body is trying to get you to eat in hopes of maybe being able to create more energy. So if you follow the way of eating that I previously mentioned, cooking at home, the whole foods, prioritizing fiber, then you're going to give your body foods that don't create the blood sugar spike and that don't create inflammation and can provide longer lasting fuel for energy. That brings us to number 5, the number 5 indicator of maybe whether or not you have a slow metabolism. And that is to have skin and hair loss issues. And that could be that you have dry and cracked skin and or just thinning hair or hair loss. And another indicator of a slow metabolism is that maybe even your nails are not looking as strong. And basically what happens is if you aren't getting the nutrients you need, whether through the choices that you're making in your food or your body just being unable to digest it properly, right? Because unfortunately, if your digestive system isn't healthy and well, and we could also get into the whole conversation of your gut microbiome and whatnot, but if your digestive system isn't doing its job, then, and even if you are eating healthy, you're not going to derive the nutrients from your food in order for it to benefit your body. And so that ends up showing up on your skin and your hair. It just can be a deficiency of different vitamins and minerals. And so if you do decide to change your diet and begin to consume more of those nourishing foods that I described, it's also really important to eat enough of those foods. Usually, the slower your metabolism, the less you eat and the less you feel like eating. You might say well, I'm just not hungry. I don't wake up hungry. I don't get hungry until 10, 11, 12, 1 p.m. This often happens when you restrict your calories too much. And oftentimes, we as women will do that for the sake of weight loss. But then you end up slowing down your metabolism because then your body recognizes, oh, well, I can't expel as much energy because I'm not getting as much food. And so it's like, okay, well, let's slow things down then. And a big thing I work with my clients on and those who are in the Healthy Weight Loss Academy is discovering the portions that serve their body's needs and goals. I've worked with clients who were eating less than 1,000 calories a day, and we nearly doubled their intake, multiple women we've done this with, and they end up losing weight eating twice as much food. What you eat matters, and eating enough matters for metabolism and your overall well-being. Now, the reason why I call the Healthy Weight Loss Academy the Healthy Weight Loss Academy is that I want those who go through the course to come out not only lighter, yes, I understand that's in the title, but healthier having gone through it, which is also in the title. Because losing weight without addressing the core elements of your health won't last, and it doesn't serve us, particularly when your heart is to serve God's kingdom. So friend, if you are ready to be a part of a Jesus-loving, result-producing, healthy weight loss program, be sure to head over to visiondrivenhealth.com/course. Otherwise, that is what I have for you today on the top 5, actually not top 5, the missed indicators. How did I say it? Indicators most people miss on whether or not you have a slow metabolism. So again, number 1 was you're feeling cold. Number 2, you have high blood sugar or those cravings for sugar, which like I described can happen when your blood sugar shoots low. Number 3, you're consistently bloated or constipated. Number 4, you're always feeling tired. And number 5, you've got, that dry, cracked skin and that thinning hair or hair loss. Friend, I hope you have a blessed day, and I will chat with you in this week's Holy and Hungry segment. Thank you so much for listening to the Vision Driven Health podcast today. I hope this episode inspired you, supported you, and blessed you in some way. If it did, it would mean the world if you would leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast and share this episode on your social media. The more reviews and shares this gets, the more people can be blessed and encouraged in creating a Jesus-centered, sustainable, healthy lifestyle. If you want to hang with me and other Jesus-loving ladies who are creating healthy habits that last, be sure to join my free Facebook group, the Made Well Mastermind. Use the link in the show notes to join. Be blessed with hope, joy, and health. I'll see you next week. Again, the Vision Driven Health podcast is under the umbrella of Made Well Health Incorporated. The content on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended for medical advice. It does not take the place of medical advice or treatment from a physician. Listeners should consult their own doctor or a qualified healthcare professional for specific health concerns and questions.